All right, we're rolling, Buckster. Always have to start it. Buck keep messing around and shit.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about aviation and about adrenaline.
Let me tell them why we're on this. We were talking about that video I just posted where the guy got shot in his vest, and guys were saying he was jumping around, his mind was going fast, and some people were saying they panicked, and he couldn't keep focus, and he should have had better training, and he should have slowed down, and he was like chicken with his. This is what adrenaline, and because Buck has been in a plane crash and been flying and dealt with some things, there was two stories that I thought was very appropriate. So let's go, Buckster. You want to do the plane crash first or the takeoff?
Let's talk about the plane crash.
Okay.
July 31st, 1984. A friend of mine bought a World War II biplane called a Stearman. And I was calling him about a scuba diving trip, and we got to talking about this new airplane that he bought. And he invited me to go with him. He said, hey, you want to go up to Wichita Falls and pick up an airplane? I said, sure. Never flew on an open cockpit airplane before. So we dropped off my car or his car at little Lake Dallas Airport, which is a small private airport just north of DFW. Drove my car down to DFW and parked it. Grabbed a commuter flight and flew up to Wichita Falls. We had lunch with the pilot who was marketing that aircraft, and then we went out and looked at the airplane. We went over it with a fine-tooth comb. I took pictures of it with my 1980 Instamatic camera. I mean, it was really high-end.
That's back when they had film, right?
They had film, and so we looked at the airplane really closely. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. I had pictures of everything on it.
Now, when you say nothing wrong, you were checking like wires and connections, rudder, tires,
that's right.
Everything.
Ailerons, rudder, brakes, you name it. We looked at the prop, checked it out. I've got pictures of everything else. There were two maintenance carryover items. One, the interphone did not work front to back. Also, the front cockpit airspeed indicator was inoperative. There was a little rubber hose which connected the pitot tube to the static port or something like that on the front cockpit air speed indicator, and it was inoperative. So that wasn't a big deal because we were going to take off. Since it was my buddy's airplane, he was going to take off in the back seat. I was going to fly in the front. Once we got airborne, he was going to turn over the flight to me, and I was going to fly us down to Lake Dallas, hand it back to him, and he was going to come in and land it because I was not qualified in aircraft. It was a tail dragger. I'd owned tail draggers before. I'd flown tail draggers up in Alaska.
What's a tail dragger?
Tail dragger is a airplane that has two main wheels, which are located underneath the basically the fuselage at the wing, and another tail or another wheel back underneath the tail. So it actually sits.
Oh, that's kind of like the U-2. The old U-2 has that, right?
No, the U-2 actually has front and back wheels, but they're in parallel to each other, so it has a set of tandem. The U-2 has a drop-off gear on the outside.
Yeah, those wheels fall off.
They fall off on takeoff.
Right.
You come in on landing, and then the aircraft actually pitches over on one end or the other.
Underneath the little El Camino.
And they come up and they jack it up and put the new wheels back in it, and he taxis back.
Okay.
So anyway, he took off, and he ran around the pattern 3 or 4 times with the previous owner, and the previous owner.
What do you mean run around a pattern?
They'd take off, climb out, do an approach in landing.
Oh, so the original owner flew it a few times before y'all did it.
Well, no, he was flying with my friend.
Oh, okay.
So they were just going around. They went around the pattern, did some touch and goes,
and you're watching this.
And I'm watching this.
Okay.
And it's hot. It's July. It's middle of the afternoon. It's 100. Well, not quite 100. It's 98 degrees. So when the previous guy gets out, and this aircraft was owned by a car dealership, a Mercedes dealership in Wichita Falls. This guy was just a pilot. He was 28 years old, young guy, a little younger than either one of us. My other friend was a Delta 727 co-pilot. I was a Delta 727 flight engineer. He was ex-Navy pilot, and I was ex-Air Force pilot. So we're buds, and so we got along great. And George and I jumped in the front, put on my leather helmet, my
Damn, that is old school. Leather helmet,
goggles, and strapped into this airplane, and we took off. I remember when I was sitting in the airplane as we're getting ready to start the engines and leave, I was looking at the underneath the wings, and I could see the ribs. And those ribs are a structural bit that actually forms the shape of the airfoil, and I could see the ribs mounted on the wings, and then I could see the what is called the fabric, which is doped on there. They use a type of an early type epoxy combination paint.
All right, we'll hold that there. We got and we're back rolling, and we were just at the part you were noticing the wings or how the fabric was around the.
I was noticing the ribs and the wings and the structure, and I've flown in airplanes that were built like that before. I mean, it's my Cessna 152 that I owned actually had metal skin wings, but these were fabric. And I looked at it and said, oh, rib. And I looked over the top of me and it was flat. It was obviously metal and a dong. Fuel tank. Oh yeah, that was a 65-gallon fuel tank I remember reading about. So there's 65 gallons of avgas over the top of my head because I just finished reading the 1941 Army Air Corps operating manual on the Stearman. I read it on the flight up to Wichita Falls. Committed to memory, basically, memorized the book, said, okay, I'm good. Now, we jump in, we taxi out, George takes off. Lift off the ground, we might raise up the flaps a little bit, and then he shakes the stick. I have the aircraft, so I shook the stick back, signaling that I had control of the aircraft.
So when you say shake, you just see it moving?
No, you actually move the stick around and you can feel it.
And you feel the plane changing or no?
The plane just a little bit of wobble. You can say, okay, because you're not going wham, wham,
because
wham.
you couldn't talk to each other.
We can't talk to each other. We can use hand signals.
Okay, so that was the signal that you take it.
And that's a signal that's been used ever since military pilots have been around for a long time.
Oh, really?
Because if you have more than one guy in the airplane, it's really important to know who has control of the airplane. So you don't have one guy taking a stick and go, I'm going to go this way, and the other guy's got a stick, go, I'm going to go that way, and you bind up the airplane and you don't go either way. So you have to actually say, I have the aircraft, and the other guy says, I have the aircraft, and you shake the stick.
Cops do that when you go and make entry. They squeeze you on the shoulder saying, you're ready to move, I'm ready, and then...
Right.
So,
yeah.
okay,
and
so
if
communication.
the guy's not ready, he shakes his head.
Right.
Negatory. Okay. So
yeah.
We're up to 500 feet, and we'll say we're headed south, but I knew I needed to fly about a heading of 135, so to get over to Lake Dallas from there, so I'd make my turn to 500 feet, which is a little longer than a football field, 1.5 football fields. We don't get real high. It's a beautiful day. We want to look at the ground and see the sights. So.
And the temperature change from there to 500 feet? No. Okay.
It's still 98 degrees.
Okay.
The adiabatic lapse rate, for you guys that really want to know, is 4 degrees per 1,000. So had we gone up to 1,000, it might have been 94 degrees. So it might have been 96.
So you lose 4 degrees every 1,000 feet?
Yeah.
About? Okay.
Yeah. Unless there's a temperature inversion, then it stabilizes out and it goes on up. You can tell where the dew point level is because you can see clouds. Clouds form wherever the temperature drops down enough to allow the water vapor to condense enough where you can see it from a cloud. You go, oh, that's where that altitude is. You say the temperature dew point is 72 degrees. You do the math and figure out the difference between 98 and 72, and that's where you'll see clouds. There we were, flying along in flight, and I looked off in the distance with my 2015 vision, and I can see a radio transmission tower. It is about 2,500 feet tall.
Kind of like a cell tower?
2,500 feet tall. This is a TV transmission tower, excuse me. It's really tall, and it has almost invisible guy wires that go out and
don't they have to have a flashing light or something?
Oh, they do.
Oh.
They keep you from flying into the top of it, but we go, well, wait a second. I don't want to get anywhere close to that because you can be 100 yards away from it and say, hey, look at that big old tower over there.
Hit a wire.
And fly into a guy wire that you can't see. That's generally considered bad juju in flying like this. So I turned another 15 degrees to the left and said, I'm going to give that thing some wide berth.
Distance is your friend.
And kept on trucking. About 3 minutes into the flight, and I'd set 1900 as the 1900 RPM on the prop, the engines. That was going to be our cruise speed because that's what the book said. It would give me about 108 miles an hour or something like that. So that's fine.
What is that plane red line at if it's at 1900?
125.
Oh, okay.
1900 is 108 in a straight line on a level flight. Now, in the dive, you can probably pick up to 165, but there's a red line if you don't want to exceed that. But,
Okay.
so we're jetting along, and I noticed the airplane started to settle.
Settle meaning fall?
It's going lower. I'm like, what the hell is this? Okay. So I added power, went up to 2,800 RPM, and I'd flown airplanes, including the EC and VC 118, which had a double WASP RR 2800 engines, which were radial engines. And I'm going, man, 2,800 RPM. I think that's pretty high. But it's been a while since I've flown a radial engine airplane. That was one of my airplanes I flew in the Air Force. Between about 26 airplanes, there was one of them. And I go, okay. But man, it's been a while. I've been flying jets for years and years since then, so I haven't been doing too much thinking in the term of fixed pitch prop, much less fixed pitch. The radial engine prop. So, okay, 2,800 RPM seems a little high, but that's fine. And I got back up to 500 feet and set 2,100 RPM as a new cruise power, thinking, because I don't have an airspeed indicator. So I'm going, well, that should be good. I'm looking across the ground. I'm figuring I'm doing at least 80 to 100 miles an hour. So that's fine. And about 10 seconds after I set the 2,100 RPM, the aircraft pitched over and did a 20-degree dive. Now, we're here at 500 feet, and the aircraft did this, whoop, and starts heading down.
That's a clue that something's wrong.
Yeah, you're going to say, it's not supposed to do that, so I added power and pulled back on the stick. Nothing happened. The aircraft maintained its 20-degree dive, head for the ground. I said, whoa. I set the stick back to neutral. Nothing. Wham, pulled it back full aft. Nothing. It didn't change the pitch at all. The aircraft's still motoring on down towards the ground. I took the stick full forward, thinking, crap, maybe I stalled this thing, and I just don't have a stall indicator on here, and the airspeed indicator is not working, so maybe I'm...
So if you stalled, if you went farther down, you'd pick up airspeed and come out of the stall.
The airplane would be flying again, but it just maintained its 20-degree dive. That's not good. Looked off to my left, big mesquite trees. These suckers are probably 3 to 5 feet in diameter and 75 feet to maybe 100 feet across. Big mesquite tree. You don't want to get into those things. They will rip you and tear parts of your body off of them that you kind of like to keep with you. Then I looked straight ahead, and there were houses. Subdivision. Looked to my right, there's subdivision. I leaned forward and looked up in front of the wing to see if I'm under a big thunderstorm that has a downdraft, which is blowing me into the ground inadvertently. Clear blue skies, hot.
So you're troubleshooting all this.
I'm doing this
while you're
400 feet,
yeah,
300 feet. Now things start to get interesting. I go, I want to talk to my buddy in the back, and so I turn around like this. I'm flying the aircraft, and I whipped around and looked back there, and there's an empty seat with 2 shoulder harnesses hanging down there. I turned around, looked back again. It's still an empty seat.
He bailed on your ass.
And what goes through the captain's mind was, that son of a bitch bailed out. I don't have a parachute. It's his damn plane. And tree. There's now a tree in front of me, and I'm getting down to 100 feet above the ground, and I'm doing about between 80 and 100 miles an hour in a 20-degree dive.
You've probably got a pretty good adrenaline rush by now.
I'm thinking that's probably not a good thing to do. So I smashed the stick far to the right, whipped into about 70 to 80 degrees of bank, went by this giant tree, rolled out, and now I've got 2 houses up here in front of me. Now the houses are closer together than the wingspan of the aircraft. In other words, we'll have a house here and a house here. And I am closer to the house on the left than the house on the right. And I'm saying my wingspan is 40 feet wide, and I got, maybe 20 feet in between these houses. It didn't take long for the captain to figure out and said, okay, there's a big 65-gallon fuel tank over my head, and when this aircraft strikes that house on the left, because we're closer to the house on the left, the moment arm to turn the aircraft this direction into the side of the building is going to be stronger than the moment arm on hitting out here, just taking off the last 2 or 3 feet of this right wing. So I rolled into a bank, and I'm still in a 20-degree dive. And at that point, the video stops. Boop. All memory. Oh, by the way, I had gone through during this time period, 12 seconds, I'd gone through my meteorology courses. I thought about Fujita model thunderstorms. You look it up, see what Dr. Fujita was. Downdrafts. I thought about everything I could think of mechanically could be wrong with this airplane. But I was getting no elevator and no rudder. I had ailerons. The ailerons are located out here, and I could get the airplane, it could roll, but I couldn't change my pitch. Because actually to climb or to dive, you actually push the tail down, and the aircraft rolls about the center of gravity and causes the nose to come up, and it will climb. If you have sufficient power, the nose will climb. To dive, you change the pitch around it, and you push the tail up, and the nose goes down, and the aircraft dives. That's the way aircraft work.
You don't have flaps on that plane? They didn't have flaps on?
I wasn't worried about the flaps, but because I didn't have time to mess with the flaps. I was trying to stay alive and trying not to hit trees and not to hit houses. And I kept thinking, when I get down to 1/2 of the distance of the wingspan of this aircraft is, say, 40 feet. When I get down to 20 feet, I'm going to start picking up ground effect. Ground effect is a compression in the airflow underneath the aircraft, which is going to give you a little bit of lift and softening the downdraft. All that goes away when you roll into 6 degrees of bank because there's no longer air. So the answer to what happened, I woke up 5 days later. My face had been reconstructed. I didn't know what had happened. The expression, what you don't know can't hurt you? Sorry, boys and girls, that's wrong. What you don't know will bite you in the ass and leave a mark. So what I did not know, and I read in the Army Air Corps Manual of 1941, that the Stearman has a fixed pitch prop. That's not exactly true. The Stearman has a ground adjustable fixed pitch prop. As far as the pilots are concerned, it's a fixed pitch prop.
Because once you take off, you can't adjust it.
You can't set it. You can't adjust it. It's, as far as you're concerned, it's fixed. So they don't bother even mentioning the fact that each end of the 2 prop halves looked like something like a baseball bat. If you know what a baseball bat handle has a little swell that's milled or turned on the ends, make them a little larger. They fit into matching grooves in a clamshell assembly, which had 2 large bolts, one on either side, that held the clamshell assembly tight. I have pictures of the clamshell assembly being bolted. I have pictures of the safety wires on the clamshell assembly being done. What I couldn't tell in my pre-flight inspection was that those bolts were not torqued. At the NTSB teardown of the engine, they took the engine off the aircraft and put it on a flatbed and took it to Dallas, and they got some FAA certified mechanics to inspect the engine. I was not there. I was still recovering from this and couldn't drive or see at that time. I'll go into those injuries later. But my buddy George was there. He said that there was an FAA inspector walked in there, and he looked at the airplane, at the engine, and he made this comment as soon as he walked in. Well, I can tell what's wrong with that. And the mechanics looked at him and said, "Oh, really?" This is before they put a wrench to it. They said, "That dummy took off with a prop on backwards."
He wasn't right, was he?
You can't take off with a prop on backwards. If
Oh,
the prop's on backwards, it blows air the wrong way, and so you'd have to push forward on the stick as you're going backwards and take off looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, that ain't. Yeah.
What had happened, and why what it didn't.
Well, he was a FAA federal trained employee, government employee.
That's right. It gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling, does it not, boys and girls?
Yeah.
What had happened was the kid who'd been flying the airplane always wanted to have a 450 horsepower engine rather than the 225 horsepower engine that it was installed on that airplane. There were 2 different size engines available. His boss had bought one that for banner tows had the smaller engine. So our resident genius decides he's going to increase the horsepower by decreasing the prop pitch. So he cuts the safety wires, loosens the bolts, changes the pitch on the propeller so it will turn higher RPM than it would under normal circumstances. Higher RPM does not include or does not create higher horsepower capability. In other words, the amount of air that the prop can cut here and the amount of torque and horsepower that the engine can create, if you flatten it out, you'll get higher RPM, but you're not cutting as much air each time. The amount of horsepower that you can get out of the engine is determined by carburation, determined by displacement, valve timing, cams, and things like that. It's not determined by the pitch of the prop. Because I can take the prop and make it completely flat.
Now, on a boat, when you change the pitch of the prop, you do change. You get either more speed or you get more push on a boat prop. Because
it doesn't change the horsepower, though. The horsepower stays the same.
Ah.
It's the same as an airplane engine. I can get higher speed if I have it at a higher angle and make angle of incidence, but that also degrades my ability to take off because now there's more drag when the aircraft is sitting still and you're trying to take this big flat blade and run it through the air. You can't get as much horsepower because for takeoff. Now, the faster you go when the airplane is moving through the air at 125 miles an hour, if you increase the angle of the pitch angle, it will grab more air, but the drag is not as high because the aircraft is moving in the relative motion of the air this way and the relative motion of the air being moved by the propeller, compounds to give you higher speed up to a point. Horsepower is equal to speed. Prop pitch, I took my fixed wing and fixed pitch prop 170, I had the prop flattened out to turn it into a takeoff prop. Why? I wanted to have maximum performance at takeoff so I could get off of sandbars and riverbanks and beaches up in Alaska. I wanted it to turn as many RPM for maximum horsepower at takeoff.
Right.
Which would enable me to get airborne in.
But that probably didn't give you max speed in the air.
It cut my speed by 15 miles an hour.
There you go. Yeah.
Because
you got to give up something to get something.
Yeah. So that's why if you have an adjustable pitch prop or variable pitch prop, you set it, cutting thin slices for takeoff, and then as you get faster and faster, you start making it. You increase the prop cut so that you're cutting more air. So it just has to do with velocity in your speed. So that at higher ends, you want to have more of you'll be cutting more air.
All right, we're going to pause it here.
Bobby.
Okay, gun people, we're going to make this part 1 because it took us a couple days to make the part 2. So this will be part 1, and then I'll make a second one, and it'll be part 2 where we finish the story.